tell stories about the history and mysteries of Seneca Lake, and this one I stretched just a little bit further west to just north of Quaker Lake in upstate New York. That's also one of the Finger Lakes, and this is about the town of Jerusalem, New York, and one of its early founders, who turns out to be a very important figure in American history. The name, the Public Universal Friend. Born Jemima Wilkinson on November 29th in 1752 in Rhode Island, Jemima Wilkinson was a daughter, the eighth child to this family who were devout Quakers. She grew up surrounded by principles of what they called the Society of Friends. As Jemima reached her teenage years, she longed for a more individualistic spiritual experience, and she started to break away from her Quaker upbringing and started to attend religious services with New Light Baptists. And they were a religious group that emphasized personal enlightenment over collective worship. This departure from her Quaker roots brought upheaval and family tensions, especially amidst the backdrop of the American Revolutionary War. As family ties were strained, Jemima's journey took a very dramatic and sudden turn when she became extremely ill in 1776. Apparently, historians think it was typhus now, but back then, they weren't sure what her sickness was. Jemima awoke from this serious fever, and she claimed to have had an experience of death where she went to heaven and she met God, and she also met two archangels. They proclaimed that Jemima no longer existed and that she was now the genderless evangelist, renamed as the Public Universal Friend. Rising from illness, Jemima claimed that she was no longer a daughter, no longer Jemima, but she was the Public Universal Friend, a different entity altogether, a genderless, androgynous, spiritual being whose mission was to preach the Word of God throughout Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and eventually ending up in Jerusalem, New York. The Friend took up preaching, traveling throughout the Northeast United States, and at the time, it was during the Revolutionary War, it was still very, very wild. But the Friend gathered followers into a community known as the Society of Universal Friends. The group's theology largely resembled Quaker teachings. This genderless prophet wore masculine clothes or androgynous clothes, typically long black robes and a broad-brimmed hat. The Friend ignored or scolded anyone who used the name Jemima Wilkinson and said, "No, I am the Public Universal Friend now." Followers referred to this preacher as the Friend, or with the abbreviation PUF for Public Universal Friend. Historians have puzzled about the Friend's gender because there wasn't even a vocabulary for it back then. Some pointed out that the society frowned on public leadership roles for women, and perhaps Jemima took on this androgynous role to gain a leadership and to gain a voice. Other writers have characterized the Friend as non-gender or non-binary, androgynous. The Friend's writings didn't specifically reflect on gender identity. Some historians say that the Public Universal Friend was the first American historical figure to preach the gospel, blurring the distinction between male and female. In the early 1790s, the group established a colony in western New York State near the town known as Jerusalem. A federal-style house served as the center of the group's religious and agricultural activities. In 1819, the Public Universal Friend died after years of declining health. Members of the Society of Universal Friends initially buried the Friend's body in the basement of that house. They later moved it to an unmarked location on the property, and after the Friend's death, the Society of Universal Friends eventually disbanded. The Friends' home still stands today in Jerusalem, New York, and you can drive by it to see it. There is a historic marker there. The Friends' influence went beyond the pulpit, however. The Friend advocated for the abolition of slavery and inspired their followers to free their own slaves. Additionally, the Friend preached about being humble, hospitable, and the importance of obeying God rather than adhering to societal expectations. So if you're visiting the Finger Lakes region and you'd like to know more about this historic figure, be sure to go to the Yates County History Center in Penn Yan. There is a permanent exhibit for the Jemima Wilkinson and the Public Universal Friend artifacts. This is an important part of American history. Thanks for watching.